Welcome. You are listening to the Nonprofit Leaders Network podcast, episode 2. Today, we're talking with KIRSTEN Harbeson, Executive Director of Hope Southern Indiana in New Albany, Indiana.
Welcome to the Nonprofit Leaders Network podcast, where your host, KIRSTEN BULLOCK, interviews nonprofit CEOs and executive directors to share what's working. This podcast is produced every 2 weeks, and show notes are found at www.nonprofitleadersnetwork.com. Come back often, and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. Any links we talk about will be listed in the show notes. Now, let's get on with the show.
Thank you, KIRSTEN, for joining me today. I'm really excited about the information and insights you're going to be sharing with our listeners today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Great. Thank you, KIRSTEN. When KIRSTEN and I first met, it felt like we became immediate friends. Her enthusiasm is contagious, her reputation stellar, and her faith is strong. You can read her full bio on the podcast page at www.nonprofitleadersnetwork.com, but here's just a few highlights from that. KIRSTEN has spent 20-plus years in the nonprofit world and is currently serving as the Executive Director of Hope Southern Indiana. She led their board through a restructuring process about 4 or 5 years ago and then launched into a successful capital campaign. She brings a collaborative approach to her work and the programs they offer, and they seek first to figure out ways to meet the needs of the community. She's earned recognition, including the 2013 Southern Indiana Servant Leader Award, named a Leadership Louisville Southern Indiana Connector in 2010, is a Rotary International Paul Harris Fellow, and was named a BPW, that's Business and Professional Women, Business Women's Week Woman of Achievement in 2010. A few of her community activities include serving on the Council of Agency Executives, the Metro United Way Board of Directors, and most recently was with the State of Indiana's Commission on Underrepresented Litigants Committee. So you've been busy.
Yes, been very busy, but I think productive too.
Oh, yeah. And Hope Southern Indiana has also received recognition, including the Better Business Bureau's Ethics and Business Award for Small Nonprofits in 2010. They've received a 2013 Women's Foundation of Southern Indiana Award of Excellence, and in 2014, they received a Dare to Care Agency of the Year Award, and Dare to Care is our local food bank. So both you and the organization have accomplished big things, and I'm really excited to have you here today to share some of what you've learned along the way, some lessons that hopefully we can help other people learn from, maybe avoid some obstacles that you ran across, and open up ideas to new possibilities. So I'll just jump into our questions. Recently, you hired an assistant executive director, and I know that's something that a lot of our listeners would love to be able to do, but things always seem to get in the way: budget, time, trying to figure out how to sort through things and who's going to do what. But can you share a little about how you went through that process of figuring out which duties your assistant executive director was going to do and what you were going to do, and how you helped the board move through that?
Well, yes, it wasn't an easy process. It actually took many years to actually establish this plan and get someone in place. And actually, she's only just recently started. I think she's on day 4. So she's still very new to the organization. Basically, what we did a lot of interviewing with volunteers, with donors, with staff people. The board did an assessment of my abilities, and they basically watched and learned over the years that we've worked together. Some of the board members have come and gone, obviously, but they really tried to look at the strengths maybe that I brought to the organization and tried to look at how we could split that up. So it ended up being that I'm going to be moving into predominantly development, and she will be doing the day-to-day operations here at the Brown Starks Neighborhood Place location. It will eventually take a lot off my plate, and then I can really become more focused about development, which is crucial, obviously, for our organization. Changes in funding streams over the years and just the increase in programming that we want to do. We know we have got to do more in the development arena, and I just haven't been able to focus on that. We haven't been systematic about anything. So it's really crucial for us to continue to be a growing, thriving organization that's really beneficial to the community. Just because you're over 50 years old doesn't mean, that you're guaranteed a place in the community forever. You have to make those kinds of things. You just have to make yourself meaningful to the community, and you have to be strategic about it. So that's the course we've taken, and we're very hopeful about the future.
Great. And so true, too, that just because we've been here a long time doesn't mean that it's almost as if our organizations have to continue to prove that we're still relevant to the world around us and still having an impact, a positive impact on the people.
Absolutely.
Serving.
So many of our programs have changed over the years because of that relevancy. We're not the kind of organization that's going to continue doing a program just because we've done it for 30 years or 10 years or whatever. If there's no need for it in the community, or the needs have become much more obvious in another area, our organization is such that we change and evolve according to those needs. But you can't do that if you don't have a development strategy. So it all has to work together. It really does.
Absolutely. Now, one question I like to ask every person I interview is, and my wording of this is going to be evolving. The last person that I interviewed, Arto Woodley, I talked about failure, and he said, well, that's just your greatest learning opportunity. So what's been your greatest learning opportunity, and what did you learn from it, and any advice for people who think they might be getting into a similar situation?
Well, greatest learning opportunity is true. I did learn a lot from it. It was when I had just first started working here for the organization. I came to work under the tutelage of a long-time respected leader in the community. And just a couple of weeks after I started here, he told me he was going to be leaving. So I was in the throes of kind of being the interim executive director while trying to do a collaborative fundraising event. The idea of the event was wonderful. However, I wasn't in my role long enough to know some of the pitfalls that were coming, and I didn't always handle things in the best way. One would be the whole trust but verify type of thing, where we thought that we had the event booked on a very important day in a particular vendor's calendar, and it turns out we missed it by a week. And I had left that responsibility to someone actually that we were paying for that role, but I didn't verify that those dates coincided exactly. So that was a huge thing that I learned, to double check those dates, double check that, I hate that. It's hard for me to do that because I trust people to do what they say they're going to do. And I think the person meant well. I think that person just made a mistake and didn't verify it herself. I also learned a lot about volunteer coordination and direction. I've worked with volunteers, basically my whole life, but there are different levels of oversight and different ways that you recruit. And I learned a lot about identifying leadership skills within volunteers. The volunteer portion of that event and what we do every day here is crucial. We have about 100 just at this location every week. So that event was 100 just for that one day. So there was just a lot to learn, a lot to observe beforehand, and probably should have done more interviewing. Also could have done a better assessment of how different folks would react under pressure, including me. So there was just a lot to learn, and a lot that I carry with me forever. That's one of the things about making mistakes. You learn from those big mistakes, and hopefully it makes you a better leader down the road.
Mm-hmm. And in your case, I think that's definitely true. The successes of the organization since you've stepped in have been phenomenal, including the capital campaign that you led the organization through to build your fabulous new building. So we had talked about your greatest success, and we talked before about being that capital campaign. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Well, yes, and actually we didn't build this building. We We built it, helped to build it like 15 years ago as part of a collaboration. It was one of the only neighborhood places in Indiana. That initiative never actually took off in Indiana, but we loved the philosophy behind that. But over the years, things changed with the building, and at the building we were in, it was just lovely, but it was an old rectory building, and it just was not made for what we needed to do and what we were doing. It was just really hard on that poor building. So we knew we needed to move. In order to move, we would have to come up with renovation funds and all of those funds that it takes to move. That, again, I learned a lot from that process. Hookup fees, transferring fees. There are fees behind everything. But we had to do a capital campaign, and we had never done that before as an organization that I could find in the records anyway. And we did not have a broad enough donor base to accomplish that well. However, one of the things with running that capital campaign is it did broaden our fundraising base, our donor base. So that was huge. And also that came at the same time that we had when we restructured our board, which was the impetus to just really kick us off well. We had established our reputation in the organization as being reliable and transparent with our finances, so that helped a lot. But the board was just crucial in the development of that capital campaign. They made asks. They sent letters. They met with people. It really made the difference for us to move that capital campaign. I feel like now I could go back and do it a lot better because I learned so much from it myself. But that was a big deal for us. We raised about $450,000, and that's almost a whole year's budget for us as an agency to raise in a very short period of time, in like 3 or 4 months. It was amazing. So we really feel blessed to be here, and we feel like our operations, everything just runs better here. We're able to rotate people through the building better, and we have multi-use rooms and things like that we utilize for not only our organization but for the community and workshops and things like that. So that capital campaign really made a difference in our organization, not just for now, but I believe forever.
Mm-hmm. Great. And when you were talking about the board getting involved, sometimes in taking a big step like that and doing something that people haven't necessarily done before, sometimes there's resistance that comes into play. Did you have any of that? And how did you, really the primary thing that I'd rather focus on is how you moved beyond it, and were there any tools that you used or resources that you used to help with that process?
Wow. There was definitely resistance, not so much for the move, but for the board restructuring that happened, not really concurrently, but around the same time. The board restructuring was crucial to the capital campaign, and that was hard. We knew that the board needed to be restructured for many years. In fact, I believe my predecessor also realized that and was trying to take steps to change how we operated as an organization. We had wonderful, caring people on the board. We just didn't have some of that buying power and the expertise in particular fields that we needed so badly. So, we needed a CPA, we needed an architect, we needed somebody that could help us with marketing, because we knew at the same time that we needed to rebrand and become change our name and really make our logo known and that kind of thing. And so we did survey after survey with churches, and we talked with our volunteers, and we just talked with the community, and everyone was not on board. But at the time when we were going through that process, we had about 35 board members, and we rarely had a quorum. We just had too many board members that weren't completely dedicated to what we were doing, and we needed a group of 12 to 15 people that were really going to stick to it and push us, really, and push me. Honestly, they did. They pushed me along the way, and many times. But we really had some heart-to-hearts with people. We tried to be as open about everything that we were doing. We included some of the people that were opposing in the process. We gathered volunteers and included them in some of the strategic planning sessions, and we got buy-in from the churches most of the time. Not everybody liked the idea, but I believe now it's obvious that it was needed and that it was successful. Even though, some folks did have some hurt feelings, we really tried to do everything that we did for the glory of God first, but for the betterment of this organization and the community. trying to put ourselves aside. And even so much, Kirsten, that I was willing to say, hey, look, if to really make this happen that you need a different executive director, I am fine with that. I can be used elsewhere. That wasn't their hang up, so thank goodness I'm still here. But I do believe that people realized that we needed to work together and that we needed to cover areas of diversity with skills, ages, the demographics of who we serve, and church representatives, the different kinds of churches that we serve here in basically the Floyd County area. I think it's turned out really well.
Good. And now we're a few years past the capital campaign. It sounds like a few of your board members are starting to finish their terms. Where are you looking for new board members?
Well, the truth is I'm always looking for board members. I never stop. I don't wait until people are rolling off to start talking to people about hope and their potential role with us. I also attend a lot of community functions, either through One Southern Indiana or Leadership Southern Indiana, even Leadership Louisville, different ways to get out there. I try to visit the different churches that we serve. I don't always get around to all of them in a year's time, but I believe they know that my heart is that we want people of faith in these leadership roles, because we're a faith-based organization. So that has to be a part of the makeup, because it's why we do what we do, kind of thing. So I'm always looking. I'm always talking to people. I invite them to board meetings. I invite them. Sometimes I'll try to get them placed on one of the councils to let them get their sea legs, so to speak, and understand a little bit more about the organization. Obviously, the board members, they're placed on the board by the board. So I may recommend a name, or I may set up a meeting with one of either our board president or our vice president, and do some interviews. Certainly, I give them a lot of information about Hope, including 990 and things like that. I want them to really understand the transparency of what we do and to know what they're getting into, so to speak. I don't really like to surprise people. Oh yeah, by the way, did you know that this happened? And they're caught off guard. I really like to try to keep them informed. And honestly, I don't try to force people or guilt people into it. I really want it to be their decision, because I want them to buy in. I don't want to drag people along. There's nothing really good that comes from that. But really, if we just keep talking about hope, and it's something that resonates with people, sometimes they just come to us even. It's really a great process. I won't say it's not challenging at times. The diversity aspect is especially challenging, and we keep, harping on that, so to speak. We just keep trying to recruit all the time, and sometimes folks will come to 2 board meetings or 3 board meetings before they actually are on the board, and that helps them with the transition, and it actually helps those that are rolling off as well, because they don't feel like they're abandoning the organization. Most people that are with us heart and soul. It's not a casual resume building type of activity. They really do care about what we're doing, and that makes it a lot easier to recruit.
Absolutely. And they're fully committed to it, and I know you are too. So thank you, KIRSTEN, for joining me today for this Nonprofit Leaders Network podcast, and thank you to all of our listeners for joining in on this, our second edition.
Thanks for listening to the Nonprofit Leaders Network podcast with KIRSTEN BULLOCK. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass along our web address, nonprofitleadersnetwork.com, to your friends and colleagues. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. Join us next time for another edition of the Nonprofit Leaders Network podcast.